Defeating RH missiles is straightforward. Just notch, bro. That is what you read and see everywhere, right? Oh, look! A phoenix coming for me. Why does it get so much closer? Gonna turn out? Well, that didn't work out. What the f is going on? Did you ever had this experience right here? Thinking you did everything correctly and yet it didn't work out. This is why I started to look into it just a bit closer. And with that, I welcome you to this guide on defeating active radar homing missiles with notching. Defeating an RH or a FOX-3 missile without doing it kinetically is basically a 3-step process. In the first step, you got to react to when you're getting launched on. This is where you are supposed to fly into the notch, aka flying perpendicularly to the incoming missile. This is done best by keeping the missile line in your RWR's tiny plane's wingtip. If done correctly, and this is the main issue, as especially more modern missiles are very accurate when it comes to detecting you in a notch, the missile will stop tracking you and use its inertial guidance and help from the launcher's aircraft's radar to try and slam you. Theoretically, this is already enough for early RH missiles like the Phoenix, as you can see in the clip in the background. If you do not panic and just keep the notch, the missile tends to fly behind you and miss you without doing anything else. However, if it was this easy, you wouldn't see so many people die to Phoenixes and other RH missiles, right? With more modern missiles, if you want to be absolutely safe, you're gonna have to start using your Chaff. This is your second step. If you're in a notch, now is the time to start using your Chaff. If you use Chaff while the missile flies directly at you, from the front or from the back, it will rarely do anything. Although it can theoretically work from the rear in some circumstances. This is because your plane and the Chaff have a significant difference in speed. The question might then arise, which is better? Spam Chaff or just drop it periodically? As you might recall, spamming flares tends to leave a trail of breadcrumbs towards your hot booty, resulting in your death. This is not really the case with Chaff. You can spam your Chaff and it will work. You can also pop periodically some Chaff and it will work too. And lastly, we have step 3. Do not panic. If you've done it correctly, you will defeat the missile with chaffing and notching. However, with the new FOX-3 missiles, it can be a bit more dicey, as they tend to be a lot better in tracking you in the notch with the help of the launcher's aircraft's data link. One thing we've noticed is that if you're in a notch and you hear the missile approach, if you have speed of sound disabled mind you, you can chaff the missile last second. And it works fairly reliably. And that is it. This is how you reliably defeat these missiles. But now you might ask yourself, what is the theory behind it? Well, let's start with how the radar works. Very simply put, a radar is like a flashlight, which shines at its target. When it hits a target, it reflects the light. Or in actuality, radar waves, but same principle because light is also waves. Thanks quantum mechanics. Which are then detected by the radar. This way, the radar can detect, calculate a trajectory, and track a target. More advanced radars use the Doppler effect to not only track you high up, but also track targets flying low to the ground. In this analogy, the pulse Doppler radar is essentially a flashlight blinking at a specific frequency. The light that is reflected off the moving aircraft will have a slightly different frequency than when it was emitted, which the radar then can use to measure and figure out how fast the aircraft is moving. From there, it can discard any signal that isn't moving, allowing it to automatically filter out the background that would normally be reflected with a standard radar. However, pulse Doppler radars aren't perfect. This is where we get the multipath effect, which is all the rave at the moment. Multipathing, as the name suggests, means that the radar return has multiple paths to take to the radar's origin. Because it bounces off the ground and hits the target, it basically showcases to the radar that the target is far lower than it actually is. Hence why, if a plane is in the multipath zone, the radar missile tends to fly underneath you. These Doppler radars, fielded by basically every semi-modern jet, can defeat your flying in several aspects and can make chaffing basically ineffective if not done well enough. You very likely have noticed that already when trying to notch missiles like the R-27ER or the R-24R. But these missiles are a topic for another day. Also, a great reminder for you to subscribe and share this video. But most importantly, write a comment, like parkour? Because of the new fuckcore missile? Yeah, sounds about right. Now, why does notching work? Notching basically works on the principle that the radar cannot distinguish between you and the ground. Let's say we take a big tree or a house as a reference on the ground so you can visualize it. There are basically three extremes in radar returns. First one being both aircraft fly towards each other, also called going hot. Very simple, that is the best case scenario for the radar. Super easy to pick you up as the radar returns get stronger and stronger the closer you get. Relative to the ground, you have a closing speed of both aircraft speeds combined. Away, however, you still have a fairly strong radar return, because relative to the ground, you still have a speed delta of your own speed. Especially more modern radars can easily see that, making you flying cold also not an effective strategy. It only really helps to try and defeat the missile kinetically, aka running it out of juice. The last extreme is when you notch, aka flying perpendicularly to it. Exactly here is where the magic lies. The radar, especially in pulse Doppler mode, cannot really see you anymore, as you are indistinguishable off the ground. You fly as fast as the ground in that case. However, how is it that some missiles still tend to hit you? Here we go into the combination of the launcher's aircraft's radar, giving the missile decent info on where you actually are thanks to the data link, or in short, DL. Let's have a look at this clip where I try to purely notch the missile without chaffing or, well, firing a MICA-EM missile from 12 kilometers away. These missiles are very potent with how fast they are and how strong their pull can be. I almost used 10-kilometer range from launch to me having finally reached the notch. And you can see it says now IOG+DL, meaning not only does the missile use its predicted location of where I should be thanks to math, but it also gets some competent data from the launcher's aircraft's radar. As it falls behind me, my aircraft starts to fall out of the notch angle, and well, the missile hits its mark and I'm dead. In the next clip, you can see that the missile frequently hops in and out of IOG+DL and search mode before hitting its mark, aka my airplane. So now, let's see what happens if we add chaff to the mix. As I stated in a previous chapter, I started to chaff only when I'm in the notch, and the missile starts to change into IOG+DL mode. Also, as you can see in this particular clip, I decided to spam chaff. There is no real downside except for you to lose a lot of chaff. You don't even need to spam it, as you can see in the next clip. So you definitely are not screwing yourself up too much if you by accident panic and spam your chaff button. Fun fact, you can even notch a missile by going straight up. Personally, I wouldn't advise it, as it makes it a lot harder to get the angle correct due to starting to miss out on the RWR info, as it can't see the radiation of the missile. But you can see how the missile's white search cone goes for the blue chaff puffs. Again though, this is more of a party trick than anything I highly advise to do. As you might recall a few paragraphs before, I yapped about data link, right? This is the reason which makes it much harder to purely notch a modern ARH missile. So what happens if the launch aircraft's radar is being disabled because maybe they turned out? As you can see, the +DL part of the missile tracking vanishes. Now it needs to purely run on its own inertial guidance. And not only do you start to accelerate again, I also did a bit of a dive to be extra careful so that when the radar missile's search engages again, try and search for me, it wouldn't pick me up again. And well, it worked wonderfully. And this is the way you can reliably defeat modern active radar homing missiles without having them constantly stuffed up your exhaust port. Even if the enemy aircraft hardlocks you and follows your notch, you can still reliably notch these missiles, as you can see with the little scuffle in the background. Now, having been finished with these modern missiles, let's recall ourselves back to the first clip which started this whole ordeal of testing and editing. Yep, where I died to a Phoenix. Funnily enough, Phoenixes are even easier to notch. You can reliably do it even without chaff. The main thing you have to do with Phoenixes is to not panic, like I explained in step 3. Let me show you with the tornado yet again. In this first clip you can see just fly into the notch, and even the missile has for a bit data link. It doesn't matter. Very soon the TWS of the F-14 is not capable anymore to send data to the missile because of the notch. Very simple. In the second clip, we implemented the additional tactic of snaking, where you are in the notch, you either go up and down and have the missile fly under or over you respectively. I got one more clip to hammer it home, that with chaff. It is even easier, as you can see here. Even though the F-14 is using a hard lock, the missile and the launch aircraft's radar cannot keep you locked up, and simply see another more valid radar return, the chaff, and go for it. And boom! Or rather no boom, because we didn't die. Yep, sounds about right. Now if we take the clip which sparked this whole video again, what did I do wrong? Mistake number 1, which wasn't too detrimental, I started to chaff way too early, effectively wasting chaff. However, in a tornado it's not a big issue. The much bigger mistake I did was that I didn't trust the process and panicked. Rather than continue flying in a notch angle, I turned out, hoped the chaff would defeat the missile. It didn't. It's even easier to see the mistake in TAC view, because the missile didn't even have data link. It was purely guided with IOG, and the fact that I didn't trust the process, aka I panicked. Turned out, the number 1 mistake you can do. Just keep flying perpendicular to the missile, maybe fly up or down a bit, chaff some, and you are golden. And that's it. This is how you defeat every RH missile currently in the game. If this visualization and guide helped you, I once again ask you to share the video, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it, and with that, thank you, and I see you around.